Welcome back to Lost Treasures of America, where we find treasures that are supposedly lost across this country and briefly talk about them. Today we are taking a look at 5 supposedly lost treasures in the state of Minnesota. Grab your shovels and metal detectors, treasure hunters. It's time to dig into the video. The legends of this treasure state that somewhere in the area Minneapolis in the state of Minnesota, there was a settler during the height of the Civil War who was said to have buried a sizable cache of loot, roughly consisting of about $5,000 of United States minted gold coins on the western banks of the Mississippi River. The stories tell us that after a short, undisclosed amount of time, the settler returned to reclaim his buried gold. Supposedly, after many months of searching for the exact spot he buried it, he could never find it again. There are many treasure enthusiasts who have gone and tried to find this lost buried gold themselves, supposedly, and have come up empty-handed as well. But the hope still remains that the treasure remains unfound, and it's somewhere on the grounds of the old Minnesota soldier's home. Or at least it is buried somewhere on the grounds near his home. A good metal detector and a well-thought-out grid pattern search areas, as well as a considerable amount of time off work, could earn you your very own cache of buried gold coins. There is a little-known treasure legend that comes from the bottom easternmost corner of the state of Minnesota. Right on the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin, in the counties of Houston and Winona, lies the quaint little city called La Crescent. In the city of La Crescent, there is a familiar property that is said to have been once owned by a well-known local who went by the name of H. Lilly. This legend tale tells us that H. Lilly was a staple of the community and a person who is said to have gathered a nondescript collection of $60,000 worth of wealth from sources that are also not disclosed. H. Lilly is said to have taken the collection of monies and buried this treasure somewhere on the grounds of his property in the city. Now, with a short amount of searching locally, the residence of H. Lilly might be able to be found. With a little luck and a good metal detector and some time spent searching, that buried treasure could be yours for the taking. That's if legality permits it, of course. Always follow the laws, rules, and privacy of the areas you are searching in. The legend of H. Lilly's treasure continues to inspire curiosity and adventure among locals and visitors alike. Sometime in the late 1930s, a dangerous outlaw woman who went by the name of Ma Barker and her cohorts, the Alvin Karpis gang, stole a large sum of money totaling around the amount $200,000 they got after pulling off a daring kidnapping and ransom. This treasure legend pertains to a portion of that ransom money in the total of $150,000 in $5 and $10 bills. This treasure legend goes on to tell us that the infamous Ma Barker and the Karpis gang took their stolen cash and supposedly buried it somewhere along Highway 52 between the towns of Chatfield and Rochester. It was stated that the burial place was supposed to be buried in a shallow hole just under a fence post in a metal lockbox. Later, after burying their ill-gotten loot and moving on from the area, it is said that the collections of degenerate outlaws were all gunned down in a shootout with lawmen in the state of Florida. With the death of the gang and Ma Barker, the location of the exact fence post has been lost to time, and the metal box full of cash has to this day never been found. Now, this treasure legend comes from all the way up to the northwest of Minnesota, in a small town named Mentor. The legends say that just to the east of the town of Mentor, there is a rather large pile of cash that has been supposedly buried on the farm that was previously owned by a man who everyone knew as Thomas Fontaine. In the year 1904, it is said that Thomas Fontaine was a wealthy member of the community who was known for carrying large sums of cash around with him wherever he went. It was also loosely known that he had much more money than what he carried around with him. The legends say that to keep his wealth safe and hidden from any nefarious people looking to take it for himself, that he picked a spot somewhere around his property and buried the vast majority of his money. That location was never made known, however, because in the later part of 1904, Thomas Fontaine was found murdered next to the train tracks. His pockets had been turned out. He had been robbed. His home was searched after his death, and no large sums of money were ever found. Supposedly, that stash of cash is still there now. Sometime in the early 1900s, in the town of Henderson, Minnesota, a brewery owner named Charles Ney ran a successful, albeit illegal, practice of selling alcohol during a time when it was a crime to have it. The legends tell us that Charles Ney made a small fortune peddling his illegal booze, but he supposedly never deposited money in the bank. We are told that he squirreled it away and kept his entire fortune in or under the brewery property. Charles Ney continued this practice for many years, and despite everyone seeming to know what he was doing, no one came and out a stop to it. Soon afterward, however, he died. It is known that Ney amassed a considerable fortune, but after his death, when people went searching for his collected ill-gotten wealth, it was not found in banks or in his home. There was no trace of the Ney fortune as far as anyone could find. And since you had two options, put your money in the bank or bury it on your property in those days, it only made sense that Thomas buried his money he got from illegally selling liquor so as not to raise any questions. Thank you for watching another episode of Lost Treasures of America. We just finished looking at 5 supposedly lost treasures in the state of Minnesota. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. If you have other treasures you'd like us to look into, please let us know in the comments. Tune in next week for another episode of Lost Treasures from around the United States. Until then, happy hunting, treasure seekers.